Torchbearers takes us on a journey. We soar, we are lifted up as we experience the founding and growth of that special university that in 1869 plunged its roots deep and grew a giant institution of higher education. That institution today is among the best in the southeastern region of the United States. This book is meant to become the proud possession of every faculty, student, alumnus, and friend of Claflin University, and is recommended to become a part of the orientation package of each future incoming freshman. Across South Carolina, and indeed the nation, the lives of women and torchbearers should be an inspiration to all who read and enjoy this book. Our journey to the present-day Claflin University began before the university's founding in 1869. The year was 1861, April 12, when guns of the South fired on Fort Sumter, beginning a sad period of 4 years of brutal conflict in this nation. This brought on changes and eventually the abolition of slavery. While men fought heroically in the battles of this war, women, many of them, played equally significant roles during, prior to, and after the period of change. Sojourner Truth, for example, epitomizes the agony and hardships of the time through her famous work, Ain't I a Woman? Look at me, she exclaims. Look at my arms. I have plowed and planted and gathered unto barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lashes well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children, and seen them most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out to my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Another giant in forward movement, Harriet Tubman, through her Underground Railroad, successfully delivered more than 300 slaves to freedom. After her own escape from slavery, she is said to have observed, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person now that I was free. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. There would never have been a successful Underground Railroad had it not been for pioneering white women like Susan B. Anthony, who opened her home to fleeing slaves and devoted her life to the anti-slavery movement and women's rights. Today, through Torchbearers, we honor these women and other strong and persevering women of every age and station as we recognize First Ladies of Claflin University. When the war officially ended in 1865, a new unsettling period was ushered in. Among the problems, education, particularly for a newly freed population, and thus began the incubation and birth of Claflin University. When elite white girls from South Carolina and surrounding states abandoned the Orangeburg Female College in Orangeburg in 1861, they did not return, and this handsome campus and facilities became Claflin University. The new university was entrusted to the helping hands of 8 first ladies from Laura A. Peasley Webster, 1869, to Alice Carson Tisdale today. No ordinary university, Claflin began above the fray. While the trip from yesterday to today was not always smooth, the journey has been nothing short of fantastic. Thanks to the persevering efforts of its founders and staunch supporters, Claflin University has experienced the gratification of outstanding growth. A distinguished leadership team lit a torch in 1869, and the female partner and other strong women have formed similar teams and partnerships and kept the flame aglow. The Claflin University torch was lit in 1869 and passed on to those who would lead the university for centuries to come. Years 1869 to 1874 were the Alonzo and Laura A. Peasley Webster years. The torch begins to burn, and Claflin University is born. Laura A. Peasley Webster, hailing from Washington, Vermont, began the trek. Dr. Webster gives the credit of starting the university to his wife, who aided in selecting the spot for its location, giving her household effects to furnish its dormitory, and 3 years of gratuitous service to the institution as matron. Laura A. Peasley Webster, the gracious, visionary, hard-working First Lady, pioneering for Claflin from 1869 to 1874, bringing education and pride to a newly freed people of South Carolina, breaking new ground for a new society, and the torch is passed. The Edward and Mary Locke Emery Cook years, 1874 to 1884. The torch begins to glow, bringing the new university into full focus. Mary Locke Emery Cook, hailing from Kennebunk, Maine, carried the torch. Mrs. Cook was noted for her devotion to students. At her funeral in Greenville, South Carolina, touching tributes were offered by former students of Claflin. Mary Locke Emery Cook, the faithful, earnest, conscientious, cautious, prayerful lady, a pioneer for Claflin, bringing the new university into its own. And the torch is passed. The Lewis Marion and Mary E. Phelps Dunton years, 1884 to 1922, 38 long years. The torch becomes a flame and the university enjoys unprecedented growth. Mrs. Dunton, hailing from Martinburg, New York, was more than a first lady. Mrs. Dunton, for 38 years, was the university's chief financial agent, fundraiser, and church community worker, fighting many battles on behalf of Claflin University. She was a profuse painter and a strong academician. She championed the institution, particularly in the New England area, and took on politicians at home, all for her dear Claflin University. She, along with her teammate, Dr. Dunton, gave everything they owned to the university. They are the only president and first lady entombed in Orangeburg. The professor, scholar, the artist, the fundraiser, the social religious worker, using all of her unusual talents for the building of the kingdom of the Lord and for the building of Claflin University. And the torch is passed. The years 1922 to 1945 were the years of the Joseph B. and Gertrude Ramsey Randolph. The flame flutters but remains aglow. The university faces tough times, socially and economically, and Mrs. Randolph, hailing from Houston, Texas, carried the torch. Daughter of Dr. Edward B. Ramsey, a medical doctor, and Mrs. Mattie Ramsey, Mrs. Randolph gloried in enhancing the cultural environment of Orangeburg through Claflin University. She literally caused music to flow from every window on Gough Avenue and makeshift studio. Mrs. Randolph considered her greatest accomplishment as that of helping to bring to campus the famous painting by Henry O. Tanner, The Backwater, that hangs today in the President's office. Gertrude Ramsey Randolph, a kind, patient, and gracious First Lady who loved faculty and staff, a pioneer who successfully met the challenges of academic and cultural progress in economically depressing times. And the torch is passed. The John Jarvis and Opal McDonald Seabrook years, 1945 to 1955. The flame assumes a somber but steady glow. Financial challenges are haunting Mrs. Seabrook, hailing from Austin, Texas, accepts the torch. Mrs. Seabrook enhanced student life as she served as Director of Student Personnel and Guidance. The Seabrooks faced tough social and economic times, perhaps the toughest decade in Claflin's history. She worked closely with academic affairs to ensure that their legacy would be remembered as successful. Opal McDonald Seabrook, the pillar of strength in hard times, pioneering for Claflin to keep the university moving forward. And the torch is passed. Because of the Seabrooks' sudden departure from Claflin, the interim year 1955-1956 was guided by a committee chaired by Mr. Hampton D. Smith. Mrs. Smith played a significant role also during that year. The university was indeed in good hands. It was a very good year. The Hubert Vernon and Ethel Augustus Brannan Manning years, 1956 to 1984. The flame is rekindled. National recognition and financial aid programs gave the institution that critical boost. Mrs. Manning, hailing from Andros Island, Bahamas, accepted the torch. Mrs. Ethel Brannan Manning became the sixth First Lady of Claflin University. As she attempted to accomplish her many tasks as First Lady, family matron, student advocate, and faculty and staff staunch supporter, she lived by a covenant she made early on with God, and I quote, "I give myself completely to thee, God. Assign me to my place in thy creation. Let me suffer for thee. Give me the work thou would have me do." Unquote. She was known for ordering her life's work with almost total devotion to others. Dr. Ethel Manning, the family leader, university professor, advisor, confidant, and friend who excelled at the art of putting first things first, giving her strength to God, her divine guidance, and building Claflin University. And the torch was passed. The Oscar A. and Ethel Louis Rogers years were 1984 to 1994. Rekindled, the flame begins, and Mrs. Rogers from Vaughn, Mississippi, grips the torch. The Rogers came to Claflin to strengthen and expand foundations, academic, physical, and community. Coming from a military background, she was a Navy wave. Mrs. Rogers plunged deep into the accomplishments of the university's mission and goals. To increase endowment, to increase student enrollment, expand student internship, establish a Hall of Fame, retire existing mortgages, and more. Her push to recognize others became one of her defining traits. Accomplished manager, gracious hostess, strong student staff advocate, beloved teacher, Mrs. Rogers used all of her talents for the building of Claflin University, and the torch was passed. And then came the Henry N. and Alice Carson Tisdale years, 1994 to present. Mrs. Tisdale accepts the torch. The flame becomes a lustrous aluminum beam, ushering in a period of university transformation. Mrs. Tisdale, hailing from Dover, Delaware, gave the torch a new and steady glow. A woman of many talents and responsibilities, Alice Carson Tisdale embraced her role as First Lady with enthusiasm. But beyond that, she found out very quickly that her role was undefined. So she set about the business of redefining the exceptional task of being a successful First Lady. In the process, she got to know the community. She literally opened the doors of their residence to students, day or night. And she gave serious attention to developing the academic honors program into a regionally recognized outstanding honors college. Wherever she went, she provided that all-important added touch. On many fronts, she launched efforts that resulted in creating a stimulating and rigorous learning environment at the university. In other words, her legacy will be remembered as bringing 3 capital C's to Claflin University: commitment, color, culture. Pioneering for Claflin, making it a special place since 1994. After 2 decades at the helm of the university, Mrs. Tisdale still holds the torch.